They don't want to come out of sin. They don't want to come out of drinking alcohol. They don't want to come out of smoking because the enemy understands that if I don't get the ones that are assigned to them, the ones that God has called to birth them, I'm going after them because he wants you to have a miscarriage of who you've been carrying because he understands that this is the season and the hour. So this is why some people are going through the greatest afflictions and challenges and fights that they're going through because the enemy has already observed the time. He's already watched you. He's an evil watcher. And some of you have become disgruntled and upset because of your pain, not understanding that your pain is a gain. The word against, sometimes God will give me revelation in word. In the word against means gain. A gain. And some of us are frustrated because what's against us, not knowing that what's against you, there's a gain in it. You're getting ready to gain authority. You're getting ready to gain power. There's a gain that's in things that are against you, and God is leading you. But you cannot quit because of the evil watchers, because of the observers of time. Now, I'm going to say something. I want us to hear this because all throughout scriptures, we see observers of time. Watching time. Watch this. In the beginning, so let me say this. And I said I was going to be simple tonight. I'm going to do my best to be as simple as I can be, so we can get an understanding. Now, I know many of you may not have heard the name Nostradamus. It's not in the Bible. Nostradamus was a wizard, sorcerer. So was Merlin. Nostradamus predicted events years before they ever happened because he was a watcher of time. He was a wizard. He can predict events, what would come. Still got predictions and prophecies that are out right now that haven't happened. There are so many predictions and things that he had said, prophecies that came to pass. You remember the Mayans? They would predict things, and things will happen. Without godliness, they were making predictions. These were observers of time. And they said in 2012, the world would end. Now, I'm going to express something. I'm going to say something, and I want y'all to hear me. In 2012, they say the world was supposed to end. Minds. Do you know? How did they get that information? How did they have any understanding of that the world would end in 2012? Now, they all died off. They didn't see that they wouldn't exist anymore. But the world was supposed to end in 2012. A meteorite was assigned to hit the earth because they was observers of time, and it shifted and it missed the earth. You can go do your research on it. They was observers of time because the enemy wanted to destroy the earth in 2012 by using the hemisphere and by using the stratosphere. He wanted to use that to be able to destroy the earth because he knew if he destroyed the earth, then Jesus couldn't come back. Then salvation wouldn't take place because he is intimidated and he's afraid of that time. He's afraid of that time. And what God needs us to do, that's why I said earlier, you have to teach in season and out of season. You have to bring seasons into fruition. That even if you don't see the season that you need to see, you need to create the season. You need to speak things in the heavenlies, and things shall exist. Okay. I said that these are watchers of time. I'm just going to give you some scriptures. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 18. Deuteronomy chapter 18. going to take my time tonight. And I'll try to explain it as best as I can. 18, it should be verse 14. Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 14. It said, for these nations which thou shalt possess, hearken unto observers of time. These are observers of time. How can they learn to observe time? This is exactly how Satan functions and operates. He understands the importance of time. He's an evil watcher. And what God is trying to express and explain to us today, they got demonic powers that are watching and observing times and seasons. And I told us this, that when it come down to even babies being born, that you'll know who came from heaven because of the angelic activity. You'll know and you'll understand that these people, evil watchers, the observers of time, these people know and understand exactly when your season is about to happen. When your season is about to come, they can peep into futures. I said I'm going to be simple. If you think that wizards cannot peep into your future, go to Isaiah chapter 38. Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah chapter 8. Let's go back to Isaiah chapter 8. I said 38. Go to Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah chapter 8. I'll do my best to be simple tonight. Isaiah chapter 8. Go to verse 19. Tonight we're talking about monitoring spirits. Monitoring your life. Taking your portfolio. Watching what time you go to work. Watching what time you come back home. These are monitoring spirits. Watching your actions and your behavior. Creating circumstances and situations to see if they can get you emotionally stimulated so they can monitor and what knows how you're going to respond, how you're going to move, how you're going to act. These are monitoring spirits that create circumstances and situations because they understand that I'm going to monitor everything about your life. So what God is trying to tell you tonight, that you're under surveillance. Many of you are under surveillance, and you don't know that you're under surveillance. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 19. I know some of you already read it. And when they say unto you, seek unto them the familiar spirits, watch this, and unto wizards that peep, and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their God? For the living to the dead. The Bible said they have wizards that peek. They're watching your entire life. They have peeked into your future. So they know exactly, based on times, based on how things operate in the earth realm and in the heavenlies, they understand that when your season and all of that comes, because they're peeping. In other words, we used to say, peeping Toms. There was a singer back in the day, I'm trying to think of his name. I think his last name was Rockwell. He used to sing with Michael Jackson. He had one hit wonder. And one of his songs was that I feel like everybody's watching me. Somebody's watching me. That song. And this is how the enemy, and if you don't have discernment, you won't know that you're being watched. These are monitoring spirits. And I'm going to express this. I remember when I went to the Bahamas, and I'll give you an example, because when you start talking about monitoring spirits, you have to go beyond bodies. Natural bodies, human bodies, you have to go beyond bodies in order to understand that these are monitoring spirits. And I'm going to explain to you how these spirits work when they come to animals. How monitoring spirits work. When they leave natural bodies, they go to these animalistic bodies. When I went to the Bahamas, I'll never forget. There was a dog that laid on the porch where we stayed. When you saw the dog, if you had discernment, you knew that there was a spirit that was in that dog. That dog sat upon the porch as if he was a pet. He wanted people to pet him while he watched them. He wanted to watch the interaction, how they went in and how they went out. This dog was monitoring him, and I remember telling the dog when I looked at him, I said, leave this ground now and don't ever come back. The dog walked off the porch, walked to the end of the driveway, looked back. I said, didn't you hear what I said? The dog looked back at me and walked off. And the dog never came back until we came back. Not understand that this was a monitoring spirit. This dog was there to monitor our whereabouts, our coming in and going. And if you don't understand it, you'll pet something that's watching you, that's trying to destroy you. These are monitoring spirits. I didn't understand it. When I finally came back from the Bahamas, I went to work. I was on the phone with somebody that's in here. And all of a sudden, a black crow followed me. I'm looking around and said, man, this bird watching me. How do I know that this bird was watching me? This bird came from my head. Birds don't attack humans. It was a black crow. It came and tried to nip at my hat because it was watching me. Because that same bird was frustrated because I had just came back from the Bahamas, not understanding that this was a monitoring spirit, and they were using witchcraft in the dog eyes that were coming around. When I walked out of my house today and got in my car, the only tree that birds were chirping in, that birds were communicating in, was the trees in my yard. It was in no other tree on my street. But when I walked out of my house, I saw it. I said, these are monitoring spirits. Every power that is trying to watch me, I blind you permanently. You cannot be on my property. They were trying to watch my whereabouts. They were trying to watch my location. They were trying to watch what time I went in, what time I went out. They were trying to watch. And when I knew that, I said, these are monitoring spirits. And when you come from the beginning and look at the beginning, see, most people don't know that these things are watching them. Well, where do you find monitoring spirits? You won't find monitoring spirits unless you look right here in Isaiah chapter 8 in verse 19. He said, and wizards peep. They peep because they're watching, they're monitoring spirits. But you have to go back to Genesis chapter 3. You have to go back to Genesis chapter 3 because it's in Genesis chapter 3 where you find the first monitoring spirit. The first monitoring spirit took the body of a serpent. They can become animalistic. They can take on the bodies. And the first thing that he said to Eve, you know that he was monitoring her life because he heard the conversation that God gave to Adam. Did God not say eat in the tree? So monitoring spirits, they listen to your conversations. They can hear what God has told you. You think that they don't understand English. They don't need an interpreter. They understand the languages. So just by God speaking and communicating to them, they understood the assignment that God gave them. So this is why you got to be careful of discussing what God has told you to snakes. You have to remember that the snake didn't go on his belly first. The snake had legs. And some people don't understand that this is why people keep slithering around you, slithering to try to talk to you, to try to get information out of you, because they're just monitoring spirits. The serpent came to Eve and said, have God not said? What has God said about the tree? Can you eat from any tree in the garden? And the Bible said that the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field. He was cunning. Satan used his body. And the reason that you find bugs, snakes, frogs, dogs, hogs around you, you have no idea that the enemy is using these spirits to monitor your whereabouts, to monitor your actions, to see how you operate and how you function. They're watching you. Now, I know that you're saying this is kind of hard to believe. This is hard to believe, and you think that birds and stuff can't watch you. You think that they can't be monitoring spirits. I'll give it to you from a clean place. Well, how did Elijah get fed? How did those birds, those ravens, know where he was located? The enemy will try to use what God has used to benefit him. So the serpent heard the conversation. He was monitoring the whereabouts of Adam and Eve because he knew they had dominion. He knew they had authority. And the only thing that will cause them to fail would be the tree. So he went to the only thing that will cause them to fail because he heard the conversation from heaven. This is why sometimes when you're communicating with God, you got to command that monitoring spirits, their eyes be blind and their ears be deaf, that there shall be no communication. You will not be able to hear what's taking place in my entire life because these are monitoring spirits. Now, I'm going to say something. I'm going to talk about insects. I'm going to talk about insects. When God was showing me at one time, he was showing me about spiders. I was being attacked by spiders. Okay, so let me say this, okay? I'm going to show you, I'll say something, but you're going to have to stay with me. When I left Africa, a country I went to, God told me your assignment here is finished. You've done everything I told you to do. I left Africa, and when I left Africa, I came home, and I was tired. You know, they celebrated me when I came home. I laid down, and I fell asleep on the couch. And when I fell asleep on the couch, the first thing that I saw, it wasn't natural. This was a spiritual thing, but I'm going to show you what happens naturally too. It was a spiritual thing. I saw a tarantula. I live in a 2-story house. I saw a tarantula, and that tarantula was the size of my house. But that tarantula was trying to crawl through the back wall. And when God showed me that, I woke up out of my sleep. I said, what? He was showing me certain things. Now, I want you to see this. After I saw the vision, I didn't know that spiders, natural spiders, would come in my house. I was taking a shower, and the Lord say, look up. I looked up, and there was a spider watching me. It didn't move. It wasn't intimidated. Neither was it afraid, but it was watching my moves. It was watching how I communicated and how I talked to God. It was watching and listening conversations that I was having. And if God didn't give me the revelation, I wouldn't understand about monitoring spirits. So they use bugs. You think they don't use bugs? Okay. When God said, I will restore back unto you the years, he said, I'll restore back unto you the years that the locust, the caterpillar, the cankerworm, and the palmer worm, they have eaten from you. He said, this is my great army. Now, he's saying that I'm calling for the locust, the caterpillar. God said that these were his great army. But these are insects. when God wanted to bring one of the curses on Egypt, what did he tell Moses to call for? He said, raise your hands and call for the locusts. The locusts came because it understood Moses. So when God is talking about certain deities, when you start talking about monitoring spirits, this is why you see vultures in your neighborhood. This is why you'll see owls in your neighborhood. And you see them and they allow you to see that they're seeing you because these are monitoring spirits. Hawks. And you're like, ain't no rodents around here. But they're watching your whereabouts. When we first moved in our neighborhood, one of the first things that I kept hearing was sounds of wolves. Every night I would hear a sound of a wolf or wolves in my backyard. And the Lord told me, he said, this is the power that controlled the neighborhood. And I would see them scratching at my back gate. I would hear them scratching. Watch this. No rodents. I would hear them scratching at the back gates. But the Lord, when he explained it to me, he said that this community was ran by jackals. Okay. Now, I know that when you say the word jackal, when you look up the word jackal literally means death. So these were spirits of death that had taken on the body of wolves that ran the neighborhood. Watch this. And now today you won't find a wolf in our neighborhood. But they're monitoring spirits. And all through scriptures, which I'm probably going to take you and walk you through some scriptures today, because the enemy is intimidated and terrified. That enemy, that monitoring spirit that took Adam and Eve out, it went to the next generation. In Genesis chapter 4, the Bible said when it came down to Cain, when Cain, before he killed Abel, God tells Cain, he said, why has your countenance fallen? Don't you know that if you do well, I'll receive you? But if you do not, he says, sin is crouching, is waiting for you. In other words, it's watching you. This was Satan because the Bible calls Satan sin. He was sin. He was a monitoring spirit. And all throughout scriptures, God keeps expressing and explaining to us that these spirits have been watching you. These spirits have been watching you since birth. So they know what you like. Okay. In other words, I'll send you the woman you want. I know what you're used to. So I'll send her. I know the man that you're used to. I know you like the ones with good hair that smell good. I know you like the light-skinned ones. I know you like the ones with muscles. They have been watching you. They have monitored you. And some of you have slept with monitoring spirits. Do you know Delilah was a monitoring spirit? She was sent to Samson. The kings paid her $1,100 apiece, all of the kings, only to find out what his weakness is. So when you find people that carry these monitoring spirits, they're after your covenant. What is your strength? Where do you get your strength from? His strength was the place where God established his covenant. Monitoring spirits only go after your covenant, and they'll do whatever they have to in order to break the covenant that you and God have. She cut his hair while he was asleep. How do you fall asleep and not realize somebody's cutting the covenant of your hair? These were monitoring spirits. And the enemy will send you someone because he understands, I've been watching you and I know what you like. You don't like to argue. You don't like to fight. You don't like to fuss. You like this. This is what you like. And some of us do like to fuss. Some of us can't go a day unless we fuss. It's just a part of our makeup. What are you looking at? I was looking at you had something on your shirt. Not realizing what the enemy has tried in our life, he's tried to disturb and destroy our life. When you look, the prophecy that God gave, the woman, he shall bruise thy head and thou shalt bruise his heel. When you look in the book of Revelation, y'all please hear this. See, this is for the church because the enemy has been monitoring the church. These are monitoring spirits that's been trying to take the church out for eons. But when you look in the book of Revelation, in Revelation chapter 12, the Bible said there was a woman that was pregnant. Go to Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. This same monitoring spirit is intimidated because he understands that his time is short. Revelation chapter 12. The Bible said, and there appeared a great wonder in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with the child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared a wonder in the heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 10 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them into the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, watch this, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. He was monitoring. I'm going to show you through scriptures. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that she should feed her 1,260 days. Verse 13, it said, and when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child, and the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she did nourish it for a time, and times and a time and a half, for the face of the serpent. It wasn't a dragon, it was a serpent, because the prophecy in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, was that the woman wouldn't fight the dragon, the woman would fight the serpent. So he had to go back to his original state. Watch this. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that they might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seeds, which kept the commandment of God and have that testimony of Jesus Christ. When you said it, the woman, and I told you that one of the issues that we have in society right now is the same issue. The issue has not changed. The Bible said that the second that Jesus was getting ready to be born, the woman who carried the child, the enemy was waiting because he was watching her womb. He was watching for the timing of that this child would be born, because this child was supposed to rule a nation. So when you go back to Exodus chapter 1, in Exodus chapter 1, you're going to find that this same being, this same deity, this same power was waiting at the womb of men, the womb of women. It was waiting at the womb of a woman. The Bible said when it came down to the midwives, there was a new Pharaoh that did not know Joseph. And when this Pharaoh came, the first thing that he did, he told the midwives that when the babies come out of the womb, he was watching for when they came out. If you see a man-child, then you kill the man-child, because the enemy understood that these was watchers that were waiting on time. The enemy understands time. I told you, the Bible said in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 14, that these are observers of time. So how did the enemy understand time? Okay? I'll give it to you. Most of us, maybe you got, some of us are mathematicians in here. We got a couple of teachers in here. God told Abraham in Genesis chapter 15 that your descendants would be in the land that's not theirs for 400 years. So the second that Joseph went into Egypt, the enemy started calculating time. Time started because